Hello and welcome to day 28 of my 30 days of stories. These stories are all true in one sense and none of them are true in another sense. They're true in the sense that they're my best recollections, but of course every time I tell a story there's a danger that someone is going to come along who is involved and say, well, it wasn't quite like that. But I tell them in good faith, and if I miss some details, then I'm sure you'll forgive me, and you will certainly correct me in the comments below. Now, Duo Airlines was a regional airline that launched in 2003 and failed in 2004. And I suspect that one of the reasons it failed was as a result of the story I'm going to tell you tonight. I had a good friend in 2003 called John Smith. I've changed the names to protect the innocent, but John was one of those people who, from my point of view at least, there was always something interesting to tease out and talk about. Somebody you'd really like to spend a long train journey with. So John and he hatched up a plan to go for a long weekend skiing to France. And we made the plan to go from Birmingham to Lyon on Duo Airlines, hire a car to drive the rest of the way, and spend the time skiing, but also swapping ideas and exchanging views. Well, about a week after the plan was hatched, John's wife, the elegant, the refined, the totally delightful and absolutely unique Eileen, called to say that John had said he wouldn't come unless she came as well. Well, now this wasn't quite my recollection of the arrangement I'd had with John, but what could possibly go wrong? And so the troika was confirmed. About a week later, Eileen rang again to say that daughter Val was free and would like to be part of the merry band heading off to the French Alps. And so I found myself joining a Smith family holiday. But Val turned out to be a stimulating, thought-provoking, mind-broadening and entertaining companion. And everyone was a better skier than me, but Val particularly downgraded her abilities to keep me company on the slopes, and we had a lot of fun. At the end of the time, we headed back to Lyon, handed in the hire car, and checked in for our flight to Birmingham. We boarded the plane as normal, safety demonstration over. There was the short taxi to the runway, flaps we heard coming down, engines to half thrust, engines to full thrust. We moved off down the runway and gained enough speed to lift off and fly up to 25,000 feet. Except we didn't make 25,000 feet. We didn't even make 1,000 feet before there was an almighty bang and the plane lurched to the right. Now, this was troubling enough. In your head, you know that these planes are designed to fly out of trouble even on takeoff on one engine. But you also know that after such a short period of time, you're very close to the ground and you're totally reliant on the pilot's quick reactions to control the plane and get you out of trouble. None of this was helped by a stewardess who unbuckled her seatbelt and raced up the aisle, the single aisle up the centre of the plane, asking if anyone can smell burning. And the expression on her face wasn't exactly one that I believe they were trained to adopt in the face of an emergency. Well, nobody could smell burning, but we were worried nonetheless. After a short period of time, the pilot came on the intercom and he simply said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you will realise we've lost an engine. We will be on the ground in 8 minutes." He didn't indicate the method with which we would use to get on the ground, but we were hoping he meant landing on a tarmac. And indeed the plane banked, continued to fly stably, having recovered, and turned through 360 degrees, or is it 180 degrees? 180 degrees, and approached the runway. It was a good deal more than 8 minutes, I might tell you. Probably more like 12 or 15, of which the difference between 8 and 12 and 15 were nervous to say the least. And we landed, escorted by fire engines, racing down the runway, and all was well. And the plane taxied back to the terminal where we'd left about half an hour before, or 20 minutes before, and there we sat for a while. Eventually, the pilot emerged from the cockpit, and for reasons logistical, I suppose, he then took a seat at the front of the aircraft while we waited for the ramp to be connected and the doors to be opened. But when he came out of the cockpit door, there was an almost audible gasp from the passengers on board. He looked like he was about 12 years old. Now, I exaggerate, but certainly he looked like somebody who couldn't possibly be qualified to have a pilot's license, let alone take 90 people out of trouble and have their lives in his hands. Back in the terminal building, John Smith and I were debriefing each other about how was your experience. And in one respect we were both the same, and in a second respect we were entirely different. The first respect, both of us were thinking, well, it's either one thing or the other. There's nothing we can do about it. And I certainly felt very peaceful about that. There was going to be an outcome. We didn't know what it was going to be, and we couldn't control it. However, the second aspect, we were sitting 3 rows apart, and 3 rows back from me, John was ticking off his mind. Insurance policies, up to date. Cars, recently serviced, taxed, MOT'd. Documents filed under C. Health policies, health records, filed under H in the cabinet. Everything in order. If it is to be the end, everything is ready, and whoever's left will be able to pick up the pieces. I was sitting 3 rows forward going, I'm going to be exposed for the last minute fraud that I am. Insurance policies, who knows where they are? Cars, taxed and insured almost certainly, but recently serviced, I very much doubt it. And what about all the people we owe money to? A motley arrangement of friends and family and banks and financial institutions. And hardly anybody knew who we owed what, apart from me. That alone was a reason and a need to survive. One outcome of this very dramatic and exciting story was that Sarah and I created a computer file called Sarah and Steve's Entire Lives. And this recorded in one place all the things that both of us needed to know should one of us suddenly be taken away unexpectedly. And if you live with somebody or have a close companion, I would recommend, if you haven't done so already, that you do that this week, because it's great peace of mind. And if you ever find yourself at 1,000 feet with only one engine, you wouldn't be worried in the way that I was. See you tomorrow for day 29.